And welcome back to another episode of Strife Talking Points. Today, while doing paperwork, I have been watching the House debate civil contempt measure to enforce Barr McGahn subpoenas. Now, most people out there only get the headline version of what's going on in reality, and I've been watching this, and I want to highlight a couple of pieces here. I'm going to try and do it fairly quickly. And we're going to start off right off the bat. This is when the initial... We're just a few minutes in. You can tell here it's way out there now. However, this is when the initial thing started. I want you just to kind of listen. You start off with a Republican basically coming out and saying, you guys need to remember that when you make these rules up, these new laws, that it comes back to bite you. The Democrats have been dealing over the last couple of years when they've had power in Congress of setting up new special rules that the Republicans then use against them when it's their turn and they push forward. And we keep seeing it over and over again. And you can kind of see chat still moving down there as these things going on. However, first off, one of the Democratic people basically lashed a couple of insults at Trump. And then you're going to hear a slight pushback from the moderator over this, and then we'll move forward.
As Mr. Cummings, members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president. The gentleman from Maryland, Chairman Cummings, is recognized.
The personalities from making rude or insults. You've heard Nadler say this in the past. You're not allowed to insult us. However, this keeps coming up where basically they're going after the president. And here we go. We're going to loop back to way back in history.
I rise in strong support of this resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration is engaged in one of the most unprecedented cover-ups since Watergate.
Now, one of the most unprecedented cover-ups since Watergate. Into an investigation which found no collusion, no ties, no anything. All the indictments that happened through the Trump campaign were all things that happened regarding previous political ties, previous wrongdoing, all through the, most of them I believe were through the Ukraine, which of course Russia invaded, conquered part of the territory. Anyway, not a big deal there. However, this is the ongoing message you're going to get.
And it's not just about Russia. It is so much broader than that. This cover-up spans across numerous investigations, and it extends from the White House to multiple federal agencies of government to completely separate outside parties. The administration officials now question the fundamental basis of Congress to conduct oversight.
Now, oversight is one of Congress's jobs. However, he gets into a fairly lengthy tirade, and I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit. This is still going live, so unfortunately I'm not able to click the moments exactly where I want them.
The president's arguments are baseless. He suggests that all subpoenas that Congress puts out are partisan and somehow related to the Russia probe.
All right. Here is the Hill, and they're releasing... Politico, this is from last month. They go through what these different ongoing battles with Congress and subpoenas. The Democratic command, the House Judiciary Committee, issued a subpoena for the unredacted Mueller report and all underlying evidence. The White House pushback. The Justice Department has refused, citing laws blocking the disclosure of grand jury information. Democrats issued a subpoena for the full report on April 19. The Justice Department defied that May 1st deadline, citing efforts to work with Congress to provide a largely unredacted report. So they're trying to work with them. However, the information they're requesting is illegal to give them. It is not legal. And currently we're having this civil contempt measure where they're trying to push that. 2, Mueller testimony. The Judiciary Committee is seeking testimony from Mueller. Robert Mueller himself has said he did not want to testify. Democrats are privately working on logistics with Justice Department, but so far haven't reached a deal. Democrats are eyeing May 15th, which didn't happen. He did, however, speak earlier, I believe this month, would have gotten information from Mueller. In May, Trump reversed himself and stated that Mueller should not testify. That is where we get the couldn't prove him innocent part, where he was unable to prove there weren't crimes. He was also unable to prove there were crimes. So, again, the legal system was turned upside down by this whole deal. Again, William Barr's handling of his work. He's already stated that William Barr didn't misrepresent his work, and he was part of the team that summarized it and took out the redactions. Don McGahn, White House Judiciary Committee, has issued subpoena for documents testimony of former White House counsel Don McGahn. McGahn defied the committee request to provide documents on May 7th deadline, but he did testify, blah, blah, blah. Chats with Putin, Democratic demand. The House Intelligence Foreign Affairs Oversight Committee asked the White House and the State Department to turn over all documents and communication, regardless of form and classification, that refers or relate any communication between President Trump and President Putin, including in-person meetings and telephone calls. That, to me, is strange, just an overreach. White House said it would not provide the documents, citing long-standing precedents that protect the privacy of presidents' conversations with world leaders. It remains unclear whether House Democrats will subpoena the documents. Democratic demand. Subpoena the Marzos USA seeking 8 years of Trump's financial documents. Got to see them taxes. Trump has filed a lawsuit in his personal capacity against the committee to stop that. Trump's bank documents. The White House, the House Intelligence and Financial Services are subpoenaing Deutsche Bank and Capital One for Trump's financial records. Again, he's filed another lawsuit. Trump's taxes. Again, another for the taxes. He's again pushing back against that. Democratic demand. Security clearances. The House Oversight Committee is conducting a wide-ranging investigation centering on alleged abuses of the White House security system clearance systems. The panel has requested documents and witness testimony from the White House. White House has rejected virtually all of the committee's demands. And again, they seem to be focusing in on Jared Kushner, who was granted full security clearance despite recommendations on the contrary from career national security officials. Now, for those of you who don't know, that are even career officials in the U.S. are partisan, and you're starting to see a lot of these partisan things come up. I don't know whether Jared Kushner should have been allowed or denied anything. It's not my part, but if the administration decides they want to have people involved in the administration and there's no legal reason to keep them out, and then they get approval, even if some people don't like it, there you go. Broad corruption and obstruction inquiry. The House Judicial Committee met in early March, sent 81 letters to Trump-connected officials and entities seeking records and testimony from the White House, Trump's businesses, charities, families, as part of a broad inquiry into potential obstruction of justice, corruption. White House pushback. The response from recipients has been mixed. House Judiciary Committee Jerry Nadler later said his committee received a large number of responses from individuals and entities, as well as tens of thousands of documents. And that's what he's talking about.
But that is simply not correct. In the Oversight Committee, we have issued 8 subpoenas. 6 of them are bipartisan, and none of them is about Russia.
Although most of the ones you see are related to his taxes. So we're going to skip kind of to the end here of him.
Fraud and abuse and wrongdoing, such collusion reaffirmed above the law. Even the President of the United States. Today's resolution reaffirms that Congress has the independent authority under the Constitution to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse and wrongdoing so that we can pass laws that are effective and efficient on behalf of all of our constituents. And with that, I urge my colleagues to support the resolution.
Now, the resolution basically is going to say that Congress no longer can request things that are basically built into the system that aren't legal for Congress to get. So what I'm assuming, and what most people are assuming, is that if this resolution passes, civil contempt measure resolution, I don't know what they're going to call it yet, but if it passes, you will see in the next Congress and moving forward that Congress can request anything, period. There will be no legal holdup between a person and a congressional request. No anything. They will be able to request any information. And one of the things you keep seeing are Republicans when they talk about even like the filibuster stuff and things like that is the Democrats passed it when they were in charge, and then it comes back to bite them because then the same tactics are used against them in the future. What the hope I believe that keeps coming is the overall the Democrats will never lose their authority or power, and that's why they keep pushing for these things. Remember, with the Mueller report, there was no evidence to support anything, and they've moved on to this obstruction where there is no underlying crime. And you heard his in the beginning talk about the Nixon era Watergate scandal, which as you moved forward into this scandal, there were no actual underlying crimes that were found of any kind. And what they're hoping is that they're going to get into the grand jury testimony and some of the underlying evidence and figure out something possibly that they can tie back and use as high crimes and misdemeanors. Anyway.
Now yield back.
The gentleman yields back before proceeding. Members are again reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president. The gentlelady from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the representative from Arizona, my friend, Mr. Biggs.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the gentlelady. I oppose this resolution. The subpoena for Attorney General Barr is unenforceable on its face. It demands the full and unredacted Mueller report, including grand jury material that Attorney General cannot lawfully disclose, and the Democrats know this.
Now, that's the part here you're seeing in this. It is not legal under, I believe it was a Supreme Court ruling that has recently been held. CNN did a story on it not too long ago, where he cannot release what they want. Period. That's it. They cannot release this thing, and they know it, but still they're going to keep moving forward with this debate and with these charges. And should Congress be able to ask for things that's not legal for Congress to see as set in law? Because what they're trying to do is prove that the president broke the law, even though the investigation shows there was no breaking of the law. Just he's not a nice person, I guess. And they're trying to basically reshape all the laws to get information. Again, remember 3 months ago, the Mueller report was the silver bullet that was going to take down President Trump. They were going to be able to show collusion. They were going to be able to illustrate how many times he obstructed the investigation, and he was going down. The impeachment process was going to be full swing right now. However, after the Mueller report, a big nothing happened, and we've moved on not to criminal activity, but to obstruction of a investigation that...
In a hearing last month, Chairman Nadler admitted that Attorney General Barr could not lawfully release grand jury material. He therefore admitted that the Attorney General could not lawfully comply with the subpoena. Instead, the chairman suggested that the subpoena is a starting point in negotiations.
Now, there you go. The starting point in negotiations. This is political theater. We've had today Jon Stewart before in Congress testifying about the 9/11 recipients and the issues there. And he made the comment of how few of them were there. This is where they are. This is what's important, is how do we continue this process? How do the Democrats continually move forward? Republicans are there to kind of defend back. Democrats are there to try to get it pushed forward. And this is the state of the U.S. government right now. Total collapse.
That term used with regards to a subpoena. In the Judiciary, in fact, I never heard it before that time. In the Judiciary Committee's hearing on executive privilege last month, one of the majority's own witnesses testified that, quote, one of the categories of information presently sought by the committee appears so broad as to put the executive branch to a nearly impossible task. The committee cannot in good faith expect compliance. Accordingly, the burden is on the committee to substantially narrow this aspect of its request, end quote. My friends talk about the rule of law, but the Democrats have admitted in a hearing in the Judiciary Committee that the subpoena was overly broad and that objects of the subpoena that are prohibited from disclosure, such as 6E material, were not subject to the subpoena. But they didn't fix their subpoena.
Now we're going to skip ahead because this is a bunch of back and forth. And I'm going to skip to the end of his testimony.
But it seems to be filled with justice,
conversation.
as this resolution provides unique authority.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this moment, I'm proud to yield 1 minute to the distinguished Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi.
The gentlelady from California, the Speaker.
Here comes Pelosi, the nail in the coffin. The silver bullet's going to take down the conservatives.
The House is recognized.
Let's hear what she's got to say real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank him for giving us this opportunity to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is our oath of office. Let me salute the chairs of the committees of jurisdiction and the oath we take. Congressman Elliot Engel, one more.
Skipping through all this.
The Attorney General of the United States, Barr, and former White House counsel McGahn in civil contempt for their refusal to comply with Congress's subpoenas.
Congress's subpoenas, which can't legally be complied with. She took the first few minutes to thank everybody, and then she goes back to, we're trying to create illegal subpoenas. They're not complying, and it's our fault. Now, McGahn, again, testimony for former White House counsel Don McGahn. The White House on May 7th intervened in dispute, urging the Judiciary Committee stop requesting files directly from McGahn and approach the White House instead, since the administration may want to invoke executive privilege. Democrats say the privilege has already been waived since Trump allowed McGahn to speak to Mueller and share documents. So this is the other half. One is a request which can't legally be held, and the other is documents that are included in the Mueller report since, again, remember, McGahn spoke directly with Mueller during the investigation to clear up whatever it was they needed to know. And now which would have been, should have been possibly an executive privilege thing, but in order to not do that, Trump allowed him to speak so that they could clear up whatever issue it was, whatever, I don't know, no one knows. And then Mueller from that was able to not find evidence of any crime or any cover-up. And now she brings it back to these two people need to speak to us because we want to know.
We must follow the facts and uncover the truth for the American people. At the birth of our democracy.
Now, at the birth of our democracy, this is insanity. All right, so first off, she leads off with an illegal subpoena that can't be followed legally. Then she goes into another person who's already spoke with Mueller. The evidence has already been presented, the underlying documentation, and from that, Mueller was able to find nothing to tie it in, no collusion, nothing there that he said McGahn lied to him. So that's it. What she's now requesting is direct information from the president's lawyer, which, again, as they go over in the article, would be covered under executive privilege. And then she talks about the birth of our democracy.
Amid war surround him. Fundamental establishing a Congress in which, quote, all legislative powers herein granted are vested. The founders conferred upon the first branch.
Now they're going back to the history of how Congress got formed.
The only legitimate fountain of power, end of quote, in the words of James Madison. To conduct that oversight, the Congress is both constitutionally obligated and legally entitled to access and review materials from the executive branch, which it can subpoena. Unless
it's not legally applicable, which is the dance everybody's going around and around and around. We're going to skip ahead a little bit more.
Millions of Americans, including those with pre-existing conditions, and taking it to court to overturn it.
Now she's going into attacks directly on policy and things like that. This is the whole grandstanding part of this. Now we're going to skip to the end of her testimony.
And I vote and yield back the balance of my time. Again, in civil contempt for their refusal to comply with Congress's subpoenas.
That he can't legally comply with. Again, they need to start saying that every time.
The oath of office that they take. With that, I urge an aye vote and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the representative from California, Mr. McClintock.
Gentleman is recognized.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up. This is the entire thing. It's basically the Democrats have a subpoena which can't legally be enforced, and another one which would fall under executive privilege, where you literally can't question the president's lawyer. However, the president's lawyer has already cooperated with the Mueller report to clear that issue up, and now they're saying because you cooperated with one investigation, you need to come in and cooperate with any investigation. And literally what's going on now is they're trying to create the legal grounds that Congress doesn't have to follow the laws, and the information released to Congress doesn't have to be legally obtainable by Congress. Our government is set up in 3 different groups: executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch. Each branch is supposed to oversee how the others work. Congress makes the laws, or legislature makes the laws, judicial branch decides if the laws are valid, legal, constitutional, and the executive branch enforces the laws. Hence, the Justice Department falls under the executive branch. And what they're trying to do now is Congress is trying to remove the judicial branch's power and also remove the executive branch's power, so that we will essentially, all power will fall back to the Congress, to where everything they try and do or say or enact is considered legal because of the resolutions. Now, I have no doubt that if this does pass and immediately they challenge it, it'll hit the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will shoot it down. But hey, that's where we're at in reality right now. This insane turnabout to where the Democrats are officially trying to introduce a resolution to push contempt, even though, yeah, it's where we're at in the world. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is going to be, if this is passed, it'll almost immediately be shut down as soon as it goes in front of a court, because grand jury testimony is protected under the law and is not able to be released to Congress. And there you go. Let me know what you think. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Whenever this ends, I'm going to try and do a follow-up video about how this debate ends. But again, it's still ongoing. We're hours and hours into it. And it has just been a crazy thing to watch today. Thank you all. Have a great day. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or dislike. Don't. I can't control you. Bye.